So this afternoon, we're gonna work through some of the table of contents reports, scheduling, the grant summary reports to PIs, and one that I like to run to reconcile my accounts is the grant expenditure detail. And so we'll be clicking through some of those. I'll show you examples of the email that I send, because you can change the text for each report that you set up and run. I'll just kind of show you what I do. This is, purely to hopefully give you some tips and tricks. This is by no means the best way, the only way to run these things. It's just what I've found to be most efficient for myself. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing screen. Okay, so to get to the table of contents, Sophia covered it the other day. So hopefully you have already favorited it. So I'm just going to go straight to the table of contents. One that I do want to point out before we get into the grant stuff is the P-card transactions. I set this one up to email to me every Monday, and I just put a filter on it and see who has upcoming credit card or P-card expense reports due. Some of our faculty have had trouble with their P-cards getting shut off for not doing their expense reports within 30 days. So I run this, I schedule it just to me. I don't add anything fancy because I know that I'm just filtering. And if nobody has anything due that week, no big deal. If somebody does have something due, I shoot them individually a note that says, hey, you have P-card charges due this week. So we're not going to go through that. It's pretty simple. Once you start running it, you'll probably just want to put in your org, and I just leave it open because it runs off of what is open. Oh yeah, outstanding P-card transactions, that one. So I've found that very helpful to help some of them not get their P-cards shut off so much. And they don't like getting my notices either. So they're like, oh, I got to get this in before Winter emails me.
How do you set it up for it to email you?
We'll go through that in these grant ones. So, because that's what this is going to be about, is just scheduling all these different reports. And to schedule it is the same process. So,
thanks.
Yeah, so we'll get into that here. So I'm going to start with the all org summary. So project financial summary. I run this completely open down to org. The problem with this, which is why I also run it by PI, is if you run this by org and you have projects in a different org, it's not going to pull. And so that's why we have to do multiple reports so that we get all of the information. So I'm going to just run it by plant sciences organization, hit apply. It's going to take it a minute. If it takes too long, I'll just pull it up from my, there we are. Okay. One thing to note about these screens is you can't change the size. So whenever you're running these reports, you need to just make sure that you scroll down. If you have it, run to this screen, you can change your filters. You can sort. And so this is all just pulling directly from WildCloud. What I prefer to do is in this button with the caret, the like search icon thing, you can export it to Excel. So I'm going to change it to Excel. It's going to rerun. And so when we get into scheduling this, you're going to want to change it to Excel all the time. Oh, open on my other screen. Okay, so it just exported the same information that we were seeing in the web. So now you need to add a filter, and I usually freeze the top row. And so within here, you can filter out your closed and pending. And then I like to just sort, manipulate, make comments. I run it by smallest to largest so I can see which projects are overspent and need fixed. That's always the main and first thing I do, because as we're trying to lessen the number of expenditure corrections we're doing and the timing, running this report monthly at least gives you an idea what you need to focus on first. And so then you can, go back into the detail of why is she overspent $3,700? And that you can see when the project closed. And so that's also one that I like to filter, is by project end date. And I'm still inactive. So all of these projects are still active, even though their end dates, some of them were 2015 to 2019. OSP has to close them. And so you have to use this to the best of your ability. So what I like to do is then go to what's my most upcoming end dates. And so like Brian, I emailed Brian over a month ago when I saw that this one was ending. And I was like, hey, Brian, you have $20,000 left in here. Are you going to extend? Or is this project ready to be closed? In this case, he's just not going to spend that. And so it's going to just close when OSP gets to their closing process. But at least if he needed an extension, you could see that we had all these grants closing at the end of September. And so if somebody needed to get the process started for an extension, hopefully that gets you that extension before you still need to, expend off of it. So these ones that are ending in December, I've contacted the PI to ask if they'll be extended or not, so that they can get working on those, because some of the systems you can push it through and some of them you can't. So like GAs, if it ends December 31st and they're a GA through spring, you cannot continue to pay because the system won't even let it be an option. And so that was a big problem with the new GA costing, is I had grants pending and knew they were going to get extended, but they hadn't been extended in WildCloud. And so you just have to be proactive and try to do the best we can so that we're doing less corrections and doing our jobs once instead of 4 times. We do the same things over and over. It can get frustrating. So that's kind of what I use this big one for. Allie and I are going to be meeting with Andrew to, see about if we can close out some of these things. Sponsored programs does have a form to transfer amounts to residual. And so some of these old grants, this one of Andrew's closed in 2017, we may have received those funds and they may not need to be sent back to the sponsor. And so in that case, it gets transferred to a residual designated account. So that's something her and I are gonna meet with Andrew about next week, is seeing about getting some of these things transferred and closed out. In other cases, they may invoice your sponsor. And so although Brian had 23,000 left, that money is not at sponsored programs. We are not entitled to that. They bill solely off of what expenses we do incur. And so when this gets closed out, that's just going to be zeroed and closed. That money's not going anywhere. It's not available. The project has ended and it's just one that's in a holding pattern. We're just going to have to wait until it gets closed. So I really like this full one to get a big picture, because if you keep shadows and somebody doesn't keep a shadow on all these, it's too many. Like your shadow isn't your record. The final record is pulling these PPM reports and using InfoEd and using the stuff in the system. And so, if the person before you didn't have a shadow for it, you may not have even known that an account existed. And so that's why I started pulling this summary report, was to just get an overall picture of the department as a whole. So this report I email to myself monthly. So we're going to go in to schedule this. So you go to the little here icon. You're going to hit schedule. And in your the first tab, the general tab, this is what you chose. So my only filter here was plant sciences. So that's the only thing that's going to show up in this general tab. You can search an ad from here. You don't have to go back to the previous screen. But since that's all we're going to use on this one, I'm going to leave it the same. We're going to go to the output tab. The name would be, plant sciences, all projects summary. And that's what is going to get emailed to me as the title. And so in format, I wanted in Excel, time zone, mountain standard. Some of these run weird times. You can set the time that it decides to run to you. This destination, I'm going to do email, add destination. Since this is just going to me, I'm just going to add myself, and that's it. Well, that's funny. It's never done that to me before. It's never added them all in. As we get into some of the other ones, I do CC other people. And so in that case, you want to fill in this reply to, because if they reply, it just automatically goes to the system and it doesn't go anywhere. Like the system won't notify you if somebody replied back. And in the subject, say, monthly plant science summary. And in the message, that's the message I'm just going to give to myself. So I could say run or create filters, review end dates and negative amounts, then file in warehouse or wherever you're gonna put it. So I do save these monthly because as I work through these and identify problems, I put comments so that I can go back to my comments and see where we are, what work I've put into it, what hasn't passed, what has passed. So let's see, and this is just something I created for my own tracking purposes. So if you look at what I did last month, I've already looked into this negative, and the last salary expense was in 2017, so there's nothing we can do about it and have to work with sponsored programs. OSP is closing, return funds, just whatever it is that I've spent time on, I don't want to spend my time on it again. And so each month I save just a tab, any comments, and add a new tab for each month. While we're in here, this is my list I keep for things that I send to OSP or research, so I know what I sent and where it is in the process, because as Tanya and I mentioned earlier today, payroll, it takes a long time for those to come through WildCloud. And so I have started keeping track when I sent it to payroll, and then when I see it pass WildCloud, I would change the state to completed. And we'll look at the payroll expenditures report too, because that's where you can see it before it passes in WildCloud. So this is just kind of my to-do, some notes so that I know where things are. Because emails are getting crazier and crazier. I can't keep track of anything. So I track everything in spreadsheets. So that's what that's what I'm saying of like, where am I putting this? Because this runs monthly and I have them set up to run for like 2 years. And you can go in and change the schedule. So we'll get to that too. Now we're at schedule. I'm gonna pick monthly. You have to go through and click all of your months if you want it every month. So you can get very specific. If you want it to the day, like I was saying with the P card one, I would do that weekly on Mondays. And so that's how I would schedule it up. You can pick, whatever you want in these parameters. And so this one I would do monthly, check all the boxes. Today's fine, or the 25th day is fine. And so sure, it says that the start date is today, but it's not going to run again until the 25th of November. And then I would, change this to December of 2022, 2021, however long you want. Because you can always come back in here and stop these. You would just come and change this back to December of 2020, and then I'll get one more. So if I save this to 2022 right now, and since I won't need plant sciences monthly anymore, I'll just come back and change that date. The notification, I've played with it and it doesn't really do anything. So I would just not bother the notifications. What you're really looking at here is your output and your schedule. So then you submit it. You have to name it. So we're going to do plant sci summary. And now that I've made a bunch of reports, I'm learning that it's important to just put a note to yourself of how often, because some of them I want weekly. And so I just put the just get a naming convention that works for you. So this is saying successfully submitted. So now I'm scheduled to run this new report. We'll do this again, and then I'll show you what we're gonna do. Well, I guess we could do that from right here. Because I want to run it by PI now. Let's just return and start over so that you can see it as a PI. So still within the same summary, I email the PI theirs specifically. So the all plant sciences only goes to me because I'm the only one that really needs it. And I simplify the information down for Andrew. Because it's you saw all those projects, like that's way too much for a quick glance. But for the PIs, I think it's important that they see all of their projects. So I'm going to run Brian Mealer. And so again, no other things, just by PI. I'm gonna run since I think it should go to Excel since I already changed it once to Excel. I guess we'll see what it does. I don't remember. But so sometimes, you can run it by project number. And before I learned that you could condense multiple numbers, I was running this for 100 different project numbers and having to type them all in. And it was really awful. So that's what we're trying to get away from and, make things easier for us. And so here we are by Brian. Again, same filters. You can filter things out. If you filter them out here and then you export it to Excel, it's still going to send you the whole report. So again, we're going to schedule back at the gear, schedule, parameters. I'm not changing, just going to Brian. So here on output, I'm going to say Brian project summary. Again, format, we're going to Excel, add destination. So here, I send it to the PIs every month because I think it's important for them to have the information. They can pull it all from WildCloud anytime. But some prefer to just go into WildCloud. They don't want these. Okay. Some of them want this because at least it prompts them to go look in WildCloud. And so you would put in, I don't know what Brian's email was. So it's okay because I'm not going to schedule this one. So I would put to Brian, and here I would copy myself because I want it to go to me too. And then I want to put in reply to, in case he replies back to the message, we want it to come to you, not just to the system. And so here, subject, we're going to do monthly project summary. So now this message, you need to have something that's meaningful to Brian, because when these email messages get sent to you, it comes from Eek BI sender. And so as you're making subjects and filling in your description, you want to have it meaningful so that he knows what it is. So this is what I send to all of them. So when I was first setting this up, I just copied it and I pasted it into my message. I'll go back to that email just to show you what I chose to say. Just so that they know what it is, what to do with it, and if they want to quit receiving the messages, they have to tell me. Or, if they have questions, I just say email me here. But if they do reply back, it should go to me since I put myself as the reply. And so I just copy and paste it for all my PIs. There's one that I change specific to them, just for information that they want differently. So, and then I save a copy in their warehouse folder where Plant Sciences keeps the grant information. So that's what I'm just telling them. I'll save a copy. So if they want to just look at it, they can look at the attachment and then they can delete the email. I don't know what they do with it. I've never asked. But at least they are getting this information sometime. Because again, the PIs should be looking for the same things. They should be looking for negative balances. They should be looking for upcoming grant end dates. While we're looking at this one, so this CS, so we have 4443 up here, that's the main project. And then we have CS. And so CS is the cost share to project 4443. We prefer not to have cost share, but sometimes you have to have cost share. And so cost share, we had to have the equal. So one to one. The project got this much money and we had to provide cost share for the same amount from a different account. And so cost share links on the GL side to one account. So you can't cost share to multiple accounts. Cost share set up in the ag business office by Sophia, or I'll start doing it as well. But so cost share can only be to one account, which can cause some problems. Negative cost share doesn't need to be fixed. So what happened here is we over cost shared. So we actually provided more money than we should have. And so you don't want to over cost share, but if you do, you don't have to correct it, because you at least have to meet your minimum cost share, but you don't have to correct it. So one of these other ones, the cost share is looking like it hasn't been met at all. And so that's where you go back to your comments of something that you've already researched, because in this case, the cost share didn't go through WildCloud. They submitted a memo to meet the cost share. And so some of the OSP coordinators will reduce down your WildCloud cost share funding amount, but that doesn't always happen. So that's when you need to go into InfoEd. You can see in InfoEd if there have been any cost share documents submitted, or maybe just none of the cost share has been met yet. And then that's when you need to reach out to me and Sophia and be like, this grant is ending in a year. When are we going to start cost sharing? Most of the time the cost share is on salaries, from what I'm understanding in the College of Ag. And so that's why it goes through Sophia, because most of the time it's on your cost sharing on the PI's salary. If you're cost sharing on a non-benefited employee, you'll do the paperwork, but the cost share still has to be set up through the ag business office and the office of sponsored programs. So that is the individual report. Again, I schedule these monthly. You check all the boxes. You pick your day and time. I would recommend for PIs that, because we're going to do a summary and we're going to do a detail. The summary I send to the PI, the detail I just send to myself. But since as I'm reconciling my grants, I want both the information the same day. So when you go set these up, I'd set up the summary and then I'd set up the detail so that they come to you on the same day. And I've found that I like them on different days. So if I have 16 PIs, I'm going to set these up on 16 different days because I just can't reconcile grants all day in one. Like it takes a lot of time to reconcile these. So if you split them out, it's a lot easier of volume. And so that is the summary report. Do you have any questions or want to look at the summary again? Okay. Let me see. One thing to note that we mentioned earlier today, the committed costs, those are only going to be POs that are committed. So subcontracts, there's a PO outstanding. Those are the only committed costs. Salaries are not committed. So that's what that row is, or column. Okay, so the other one that I find most useful, and feel free, click through all these other ones. We're just going to run out of time. So the other one that I use and schedule are project expenditure details. This is going to give you that line by line itemization of your expenses to what account type they're going to and how you reconcile with your shadow. This one, I don't like to do project organization because like I mentioned earlier, some PIs have projects in other orgs. And I can't reconcile all the projects within plant sciences in a day. So I've set these up by PI, but you notice that you can't pick PI here. So that's a problem. And so that is a problem, and you have to go through here. It takes a lot of time to begin with, but it saves you a lot of time in the end. You have to go through here, search all of their projects, move them over. When Andrew has 24 projects, you have to go do this for all of his projects. And then you move them in, and we're just gonna, I don't know whose projects those are. We're just gonna send it over just so you can see what it does. And so I use that summary that we already ran to see which ones are active and which ones maybe even need to be pulled in this, because you don't need to pull closed ones because they can't spend on them anymore. I tend to continue to pull ones that have zero balance and are active just in case something goes amiss. But again, hopefully you'll catch that in your summary that a project ended 4 months ago, but whoa, why did something just get charged there? So you can either do that here within your details, but you'll definitely see that on that summary. Then you can go investigate just the one. Again, I don't put any dates. I'm not doing by organization because I'm sorting by project number. I'm gonna cancel that because I don't want it to come up. So I'm just gonna shoot this off to Excel. And this is what that looks like. So when that downloads, again, you want to add in a filter. This is just what I always do it with all my spreadsheets. I just always filter row and freeze panes. If you do your filter row and then you come over here and you type in comments and you say, researched, okay, and then you go filter over here by something else. Did you notice that this didn't move with the line that it should have moved with? And so if you put in this filter and you add in another column, you need to go back home, remove your filter, and put it back in so that it grabs. Nope, not that one either. So that it grabs that additional column that you just added. So just be careful as you're adding columns and using filter functions. And so within here, I use this to reconcile monthly, bi-monthly. It's best practice to do this monthly. I think, Danette, you like to do it weekly. And so if you have that capacity, that's awesome. And so, I would run this for each PI on their projects, filter it by your most recent, or sort rather. And then I go in here project by project. So these are all of Brian's. Click on this project to filter it down. And then I can check, say September and October and reconcile these lines, these amounts with my shadow. And so the shadow for Brian, this is just the shadow I created for him. All of his projects are in one spreadsheet. And as projects drop off, there's no need to keep the tab. And so, because then you're using PPM as the final record. So then you can delete tabs. As a new project gets added, you want to add a new tab. But so I think we were even looking at this one, the 1387 in the scheduled spreadsheet. So then I would go look and compare these. And I put these encumbrances in here. When I did the GA costing for Jordan, I know that Jordan's scheduled out through December. So I just put her costs that I know we're expecting on here because it's not encumbered anywhere else in the system. So then Brian has a better idea of his actual available balance. Anytime you do any payroll transaction, you could go put in here for a year or whatever time period, the things that you know, and so then you can track if something's amiss. And so like scholarships kind of had to wait for those to post, but I knew to expect it when I was going through and reconciling. And so, here's all of Jordan's that you're reconciling to your shadow. You can hide your columns so that you can split screen with your other spreadsheet so you're not bouncing back and forth. Typically, I only send this to me. Brian likes his, so he gets it, as well as the office coordinator up in Sheridan. That's just something specific to plant sciences, because she helps manage his grants too and spending. So we'll go back to the schedule. And so this is the email that goes to Brian and to Rochelle. I just called it Brian Monthly Grant Expenditures. This was my first try months ago. He was my first one. I was like, do you want to see this? And so, my message isn't as nice, and I'm just saying detail report, add filter. Do what you want with it. I don't know. Because some PIs do want to see that monthly expenses, and this is a good way for them to track when they have non-benefited hourly employees. They can, if they get sent this, they'll see where their employees are getting paid from. And that's just another check of, are your employees getting paid from the right place? Has something ended? You need to change your employees. Hopefully you would have changed them because you saw in the summary that your grant was ending next month, so you can take that proactive approach. So we're gonna say Brian's, all of his projects, I went through, typed them all in here. So then you go up to schedule again. So the scheduling process is all the same. If it decides to come up, your parameters are the same. Your output, again, when you name it, this one is expenditure details instead of summary. You're going to do this for multiple PIs and say, Brian, monthly expenditure detail. I'm going to add a destination. I'm going to send it to Brian. I'm going to copy Rochelle. I'm going to copy myself. Subject is going to be project expenditure detail and what to do with it. If I'm only sending it to me because I'm reconciling it, I'm just going to put myself. If that didn't keep doing that, I'm going to name it Brian because I'm doing this for each PI for reconciling purposes. So it'd be Brian monthly expenditure details. You don't care about my spelling right now. And I'm going to say, used to validate monthly expenses. And that's the only message that needs to go because it's only going to me anyway. So then I'm going to schedule it monthly, click all the buttons. Hopefully, we just set up the other one. So now I'm just going to go ahead and run this. I'm going to go till December of 2022. And then I'm going to submit it. And both of these will come to me, within 10 minutes of each other. And so then you can work through those pieces together. And so, putting multiple projects together helps you not have to go run this report for each of your projects like I used to do. I used to click one, I'd hit third, I'd have one project, I'd do apply, I would reconcile using this to my shadow, and I'd have to do this a gazillion times. And so this is still very helpful. If you're not going to run a monthly report and you need something right now, or you're waiting for a correction to pass, and you don't want to run the full report, then you can go and just look up in there and see if your correction is passed. So I'm going to pick one of my projects. I'm going to remove all, put in my actual project. Yeah.
So are these reports real time, or do they only update at the when they close the month out?
Well, it's here and there. So as you do expense reports, you'll see it come through here. But as mentioned earlier with the payroll is not going to come through until they close the GL, and then Impulse has to do something to pull it in over here. So like you can see that this was last updated by Kim Pulse on the 3rd. So I haven't figured out days and times, and I think it just varies on the process and where they are. And like if it was a PO or an expense versus a salary correction. And
Okay.
so what I had wanted to look on this one was to see if this salary correction happened. And it hasn't yet. So his October paid here, but what I'm waiting for is to see that September corrects from my state account to this project. Because as we mentioned earlier, I couldn't put him on a different project because he wasn't related to that project. I had to put it elsewhere so that he at least got a paycheck. But I'm still waiting for that correction to come through. So, yeah, that's part of the systems that is not great. And so with those things, you can go to the payroll expenditures without fringe to see which payroll corrections have passed. This report updates way more. And so you can schedule this one too. So if you know who your non-benefited hourly employees are, I would create this. I would filter by employee, and I would run this every 2 weeks so that you know how much each of your non-benefited hourly employees actually submitted on their time card. And I would run this and schedule it and have it sent to your email. Then you can go post it to your shadow. Then when you go reconcile, you should have that information there. But so if you're waiting for a correction to pass, you can go search your project. Oops, whoa. Whoa. I'd probably just start, if you're not looking for last fiscal year, I would just start with January 1. Sometimes you want all the project details. If you're searching by employee, you probably want to put in a date and time, a date just in case they, have worked on campus for a long time. And so I think this is one that we'll get to see that the correction passed, but it hasn't posted to PPM yet. But this is how you would check, like as you're creating expenditure corrections for payroll. You can go run this by your employee to see what they got paid from so that you know what it needs to be moved to and how much, because a lot of times, we need to split things. Oh, there it is. It's still thinking. I don't want that one. Okay, so now we can see that supposedly, so Sean Don's correction did get made at payroll, because I was looking at this project for September. It says retroactive costing, that means a correction. And so that shows that happened on 11/1, but you saw we just ran it and Sean Don did not have a September payroll. So the correction did get made. It's just a matter of the timing that it hasn't posted to PPM yet. So this is where you would go check while you're waiting and anxious and wanting to know that you did it right. And so, yeah, retroactive costing, that is the change. The payroll calculation, that's regular. That's what was submitted in the GA costing module. And so you can use, your unrestricted, designated, those would all show here. And then the project info, so. So that's, and Sophia will be going over payroll next week. I'm sure she'll show you these two reports, but that's how I use them in relation to grants. This payroll funding is important, especially as grants are ending. You can go and see that you've moved their funding off. If you can't remember or you can't find your HCM funding form, you can go run it for whatever date and time. Again, you could schedule this. You could schedule this to run from 7/1 of 2020 to 6/30 of 2021. No, it won't let me. I think it will. And you could run it by your project number. If you know that a specific project cannot go over, you could put it in your project and have, do the same schedule. Schedule it, have it sent to you weekly, monthly, see who is being projected to be paid from whatever account. You could do this by your organization. So if we search plant sciences, you would just move them over. And then this report shows you who is go ahead and run it. Who's on what account and their splits. And so it doesn't do fringe, but it will show you as you're preparing for grants to close that you need to move them off. So if you use the summary and this salary funding, we can be super proactive and hopefully as things get a little more automated, I like to have them sent to my email because going through this, I hate this twirly. I'd rather it just process and it send it to me, and so that is why I wanted to host this, because I think scheduling makes our lives so much easier. And so then you can see, what their funding is for this GA and to the end date. So, this GA ended on August 31 of 20. So this is a good way for you to, have that proactive approach. Let's see. Oh, my other one, Hatch Multi-State, McStennis. Tanya, I think, do you track the animal health and disease? Or is that Marjorie?
I think I do.
Okay. So this is one I run separately and specific because like animal health and disease, I don't think that's in your org. That would be outside your org, so you're not going to see it in some of those reports. And so Hatch is not in plant sciences org. It's all in AES. So I run this one specific to those project IDs. So this is, you could do that with your summary and your details. And then it's just it's like you being the PI on your specific ones that aren't in your org. So then you would go search your project IDs. The animal health and disease is 4911. So you would add that. You'd add Hatch. So whatever level you are, because, well, I guess I don't know the hatch numbers off the top of my head.
I know mine's I, that's all I know.
Right.
All the
Plant
numbers and
sciences
like,
is H. So you could add those 4 that you don't typically pull in your org and send those to yourself monthly so that you're staying within your limits to your subaward. So if your I, plant sciences is H, you would just go down to that detail and send that to yourself once a month. So that's what my last email is. No, I guess I closed it. So I have a all plant sciences summary, a PI summary that goes to the PI, a PI expenditure detail, and then this capacity grant one that needs monitored as well. Oh, and then to get to the ones you've scheduled, you go to the home. So like, I'm gonna quit most of these coming to me as Allie sets them up for her. So then you go to report jobs. And you can see all the reports that I've set up for myself. So I'm gonna go through and delete some of these and because I don't need them anymore. And I haven't figured out a way to run them from here, which is weird. Like, I haven't figured that out. So if I wanted all of Brian, I'd have to go click them all in again or go back to the last email because I can't figure out how you just run it. Because it just takes you to your actual schedule. So I don't know, you have to reset them up, I guess. Or I don't know. If somebody figures that out, I would love to know. So if you notice, I'll go back there. I'm going to click on Brian summary monthly, and I'm going to click the pencil. And if you go to output, I can, change my message. So I could change my message that says, hey, please send to Allie. If you have questions, please send to Allie. I'm going to have Allie set these up for herself because I don't want to manage all of her reports. But in the interim, I could do that so that they still keep getting their reports, but then contact her. Then you just submit and it changes the one you already did. You can submit as new and it'll be a whole new run. So as you're setting up 15 of these, you can submit as new, go change your PI, change your output. Now you already have your message in here, change the name to Renda, and then submit as new. And so then you don't have to go all the way out for these summary ones. You just, you would change your input and just change all of your, and then that keeps your schedule. So as you start playing in here, you'll see. And you'll get some tips and tricks, and then you won't ever, look at them again because you don't have to set them up that often. So like you can see your frequency, I have most of them are repeat monthly. Here's my repeats weekly for my outstanding P card. Oh, I also run no active timesheet. I assume Sophia will go over that one too. But so whether you're running you're scheduling your PPM reports or scheduling your payroll reports, they're all going to show within this manage because it's all based off of what you're scheduling from this level. Too much? Exciting? You love it? You can't wait to get started?
I've used
I
a
mean, I
lot
love
of
that
those.
too.
What's that? Go
I've
ahead,
been in
Tanya.
a lot of these reports, but I did not know you could have them sent, like you could run them and just have them sent. That's fantastic.
Yeah, super
That's
exciting.
great. I love that's gonna make things so much easier.
Yes. Yep. Is there anything else you want to see while we're all together? It's all, I think, once you get starting to schedule, you'll see that it's the same process to schedule regardless of which one you're on. And you can delete and edit as needed too. So.